Missed my sound guy, I think. She would have had that. The Eccles girls are doing a good job too. They're learning. They're getting there. Paige and Haley are next on our line after they'll follow up. Okay? Welcome back to some more Isaiah. Woohoo, Isaiah. We're getting close, aren't we? 58, I think, right now. So 66 chapters. We're getting close. So you said you had some ideas maybe for going forward?
Yeah, I got an idea.
Okay.
Not sure about the merit of it, but I do have an idea.
We can try it.
I don't want to do the Old Testament.
We've done a lot of Old Testament. We've done a lot of prophecy. When we did the prophecy of Christ and stuff, in the last 2 or 3 years, all that stuff, we've looked. Prophecy's not the easiest thing to look at, but it makes stuff clear though. I mean, the more you're in it, you see it, and you don't know how anybody couldn't see it.
It helps you see it now.
Yeah. No, yeah. There's a lot of work to get there, but we'll figure it out. All right, so we're going to Isaiah. My resources, I did not use the Blue Letter Bible today. I used Bible Gateway. I used Study Light, Kaufman, Barnes. I used their Interlinear Bible today, and that goes to a concordance for definitions of words. I also used Bob Winton's commentary on Gospel Broadcast Network. Use a little bit of all that stuff. And I think the message is pretty coherent amongst all of them. There's no real gap in that. Sometimes it's 3 ways, 3 people, 3 ways. I didn't see real argument on there. I do know Barnes is Calvinist. Is that the right word for him? So sometimes you'll find that stuff that with that predestination, that he blesses prosperity on those that he wants to bless. Yeah. So, and I don't think that's quite true, but he's got a lot of good background information and stuff. So I'll quote actually all 3 guys today. So I'm going to pick up, Chuck was like in verse 6 of chapter 58. I picked up the other ones, just set the tone that'll get us rolling. So, what voice would you use to warn someone of impending doom? Would you whisper? Would you use sarcasm? Would you use a casual mention? Would you say it loud and clear? Psst, something's about to fall on your head. Get what? You watch that piano fall from the skyscraper like on the old Laurel and Hardy movies and stuff, right? Psst, watch out. Yeah, the sarcasm one wouldn't work too either. Hey, what are you going to do? Get run over by a car? Casual mention, you might want to move a little to the left. No. Yeah, I wouldn't stand so close to those teeth. It has to be loud and clear. If you really want to warn somebody about impending doom, it has to be loud, it has to be clear. And that's really where it's at. And this chapter starts that way. Isaiah 58, verse 1, cry loudly, do not hold back, raise your voice like a trumpet, and declare to my people their transgression, and to the house of Jacob their sins. This is what God's telling Isaiah. This is how you have to do it. What voice is he supposed to use? Loud and clear, right? It can't be a whisper. It can't be sarcastic. Although he's pretty good at sarcasm. Some of his stuff is pretty sarcastic, to be honest. And some of it's God's words right there, but at least inspired, but some of it's right from God. Loud and clear. Don't hold back. Raise your voice like a trumpet. Anybody play trumpet? Am I the only brass player at all? Anybody else playing a horn? No? Okay. Me alone. Sometimes I get hung out like that. So anyways, yeah, some of the trumpet players I knew in the marching band, they like to use those guys for soloists, those guys. Ladies too. Don't miss. And I'll tell you what, a trumpet out in front of a whole marching band in a football stadium, everybody will hear that trumpet. They ain't no need to microphone that thing. It's going to get heard. So. Who is he warning? Who is Isaiah supposed to warn loud and clear? God's people. The house of Jacob. We've looked at that word before, the house of Jacob. What's the difference with that? That seems to be more like the bloodline. The Jews, I mean, that's what they believed in. There's a spiritual side, there's a righteous side that sometimes gets called Israel, where the house of Jacob is those who depend on that bloodline for, I'm son of God and God will take care of me. Chuck? Oh, you're right. It does say that. Blind in both eyes. Yeah, declare to my people, the spiritual people, the righteous people, the people who love him and follow him and try, and to the house of Jacob. Yeah, declare to both. Sometimes they even use a little repetition just to set the tone. You say it twice, different ways. That works with kids. It works with... What is he supposed to warn them about? Their sins, their transgressions, their what has pulled them apart from God. Even though the bloodline says they're God's people, they are choosing to not be. With his impending doom of captivity, he's done. He's done all he can. God's done all he can do. Every man for themselves. They do what's right in their own eyes, as it says in Judges. So that's kind of where they're at. And he wants them to be warned about that. Verse 2, yet they seek me day by day, delight to know my ways. As a nation that has done righteousness and has not forsaken the ordinance of their God, they ask me for my decisions. They delight in the nearness of God. On the surface, that verse 2 sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Yet they seek me day by day and delight to know my ways. As a nation that has done righteousness, has not forsaken the ordinance of their God, they ask me for decisions. They delight in their... Is that what they're doing? Have they been that way? There's kind of a sarcasm in that too, but on the surface, this is what they're doing. But in their life, God sees through that. Verse 1, he talks about the transgressions and the sins. It's a show. They're trying to con God. Yeah. Realistically, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to con God. They're trying to, everybody sees me seek him. Everybody sees me, it's all about what is seen rather than what has happened. It's a hypocritical show of righteousness. Right. Yeah, the Pharisee that prayed, it was not for the righteousness of God, it was the righteousness of him, and he wanted everybody to hear it. He said it loud. Everybody can hear it. Everybody can, thank goodness I'm not that guy, and all that kind of stuff. And this is what they did. This stuff, it kind of applies today too, though. I mean, you have to see that too, because it applies to us too. How many people have that show of righteousness, but it doesn't show but that prayer and praise doesn't follow through in their life. I try to remind people sometimes that we don't go to church, we are the church. If that's all you're doing is coming to church, you're not there. You have to be the church. The ordinance of God, of their God, Coppin said that they would keep feasts proclaimed by their leaders, but forsake the ordinance of God by not keeping the fast of the... They would keep fasts proclaimed by their leaders, but forsake the ordinance of God by not keeping the fast of the Day of Atonement. So if we said that this week, if the elders decided that we were going to have this week we're all going to fast in order to get some new law posted, passed, or we're going to fast so that God will bless our congregation with more money to get more orange carpet or something like that. It'd be something you'd set up on your own, and they would follow those, but they weren't keeping the Day of Atonement fast. That wasn't what they were interested in. So, unless Kaufman proclaimed that they were doing that. Barnes used the example of the Sanhedrin. They would they'd consult the laws of their religion, they would consult their traditions that they had, and they were afraid of violating them. No, we don't have the right to kill anybody. They would make sure that everybody was following all the rules and all the laws. They were full of oppression. Their laws were tough on the poor, tough on everybody, strife, wickedness. They wouldn't even enter the judgment hall of Pilate because they didn't want to defile themselves for Passover. But all of that, and they held illegal trials. They had brought false witnesses against Christ. They plotted to kill Jesus himself. Thou shalt not murder. Not too hard to understand that one itself. But they did all that stuff. But on the outside, they wanted to look and be clean. Can you do that? I mean, if you didn't want to defile yourself in the court of the Gentiles, but you plotted to kill somebody, could you really justify that with God? You can't justify it with God, but you can maybe you can justify it to yourself or justify it with others. Yeah. The motivation is power, money. No, had nothing to do with following God, and that's what you see with the people of Jacob, the house of Jacob at this time. They're not following God; they're making it look like, at least to others, that they are, and that's kind of what they're doing. And Winton also uses the example of people appearing on national TV with ashes on their forehead or with a necklace with a cross, but live lives of extortion and excess. And that's the part I really want to focus on. You see people like that. I mean, this past week with the ashes, you probably saw people around. You probably saw people on TV on it, or the necklace that's got a cross. But the other days of the week, that matters too. You might put that, portray that image, but it's the rest of your life that really makes the difference. So that's kind of where they're at, what you want to look like and what's really happening. Verse 3, why have we fasted and you do not see? Why have we humbled ourselves and you do not notice? Behold, on the day of your fast you find your desire and drive hard all your workers. What attitude did the people take to God's response? That's in quotes, really. What was the attitude they took to God's response? Yeah, actually that's a good answer right there. We kept the fast. We did what we were supposed to do, but you don't see us, you don't hear us. Chuck?
Obliged to do this because of what I did for you.
Yeah.
And that was, I think I asked the question here, you may have still have it up there. How is that different than how Nineveh responded?
Right, I still got that question on there. I kept it under somewhere. It is under there. We'll get there. But yeah, they approached it just like they did with the idols and stuff. We did this, you're obliged to follow suit. Yeah?
Of what he had to oblige God. Whereas Abel did it because he loved God.
Yeah, the Cain and Abel, that's a good example. Yeah, Cain did it to oblige God. Abel did it because of his love for God. That's a really good example. That's probably the first example, really. But that's a really good example. Clive?
Yeah, even today, we have issues with God. When we fast, we ask Him for something, and it doesn't happen immediately. We have issues.
Yeah, if we ask for God's stuff and it doesn't happen the way we want it to happen, doesn't happen immediately, then God's failed us. That's a lot of times people feel that way. Yeah, I remember teaching the kids classes. That's when I was an early Christian. I got stuck kind of teaching second, third, and fourth graders. I say that because I said no, but I took the job anyways. But I learned a ton because I taught Wednesday night for I think 2 years straight that I taught that class. But it gave me a good chance to learn from their curriculum at the same time. But they had a class, and one time it was God answers prayers, and God answers prayers always. It may be yes, it may be no, and it may be wait. Maybe I got a better answer type thing. In my own life, I've seen that. You know, I mean, I can trust the fact that he answers prayers. I see the examples in the Bible. One of the weirdest ones has got to be the Egyptian captivity. He remembered their cries. He remembered them. It's been 400 and something years. He didn't forget them, but, you know, he answers. We've had it here. We pray a lot. We have a lot of success. Well, I don't know whether we have a lot of success. We pray. It's probably not the best phrase, is it, that we have a lot of success. I think the key is still to pray. As the church grows, we get more prayer requests for people that we don't know, but they trust that we talk to God on their behalf. There was somebody that came through the internet that I put it on Lightpost. She had prayers. Some of those were that she could get over some things in her life, some of that she could learn to get closer to God. It's a real request. It's good to see people trust us to ask for that, and they ask for it with food pantry and things like that. But anyways, God hears. What did God say still happened during their fasting? Behold, on the day of your fast, what? So right now, people that are doing Lent, for instance, would give up something. It used to be meat on Fridays. It used to be meat every day during Lent, right? And then they'd give up meat on Fridays. But they give up something. And like this with the fast would probably be the same thing. They might give up eating, but they still found a way to follow their own desires. They might give up eating so they could focus on God, but instead they focused on whatever that might be, dog racing or something, you know. But they defined their own desires, so they really didn't get the purpose of the fast. You know, give up meat on Fridays, but you know, drink 14 milkshakes maybe or something like that. You know, follow your own desires, but you're meeting the letter of the law, but missing the point of it. It says they would drive hard on their workers. As I'm trying to get closer to God, I treat people worse. You know, that's what was happening with these people. Yeah, I want mercy from God, but you don't show mercy to anybody. Work harder. Yeah. It's the Sabbath day for my people. It's work day for you, you know. I'm sure of that. Yeah, I don't care if you're sick. I don't care if you're broken. Have that baby and get back to work. You know, it's got to be that way. Whose fast is it? On the day of your fast, you find your desire. Whose fast was it that they were doing? It's their own fast. On the day of your fast, you find your desire. If it was God's fast, it would have been handled different. It was their own fast, mainly to look good. We'll move on to the next verse. Verse 4, behold, you fast for contention and strife and to strike with a wicked fist. You do not fast like you do today to make your voice heard on high. Barnes said that even when they were fasting, they were still giving full indulgence to their depraved appetites and their lusts. The Syriac version of the Bible, the Syriac text, has well rendered this. In the day of your fasting, you indulge your lusts and draw near to all your idols. Yeah, that's not the point of it right there, but that's apparently what they were doing. They might fast, but they were indulging all of their lusts. They were still drawing near to their idols. Absolutely not the point. Why does God not respond to their fasting? And like Chuck said, how is it different than how God responded to the people of Nineveh after Jonah's warning for God? It's because they're doing it for themselves. And the people of Nineveh repented. Yeah. Nineveh they threw themselves on the mercy of God. These people are trying to manipulate God. Look what I'm doing. I don't even know if they're trying to manipulate God or if they're just trying to manipulate the people around them. I don't know. I mean, that's a crazy place to be, really. But yeah, they're upset that God answer. He doesn't give them what they want. I've done so much. What have the people refused to change? It's got to be their hearts. I mentioned soft hearts a lot. I know some hard-hearted people. You have to see things differently. You have to have a soft heart. The fast that God responds to, picking up verse 5, is it a fast like this which I choose, a day for a man to humble himself, or is it for bowing one's head like a reed and for spreading out sackcloth and ashes as a bed? Will you call this a fast, even an acceptable day to the Lord? How would someone evaluate their own fast to determine its acceptability to God? I mean, if you want to, I think it's worthwhile taking a look at your own worship, looking at your own fast or whatever. How would you evaluate it? Is it acceptable to God? I hear that in some of the prayers here. I hope that everything today, I pray that everything here was acceptable to God. Of course, it's got to be set up that way in the first place. But how would you evaluate your acceptability of a fast? Yeah. Yeah, or am I going through the motions, or did I really humble myself? You know, that I come here to check the box, or did I humble myself before God? The bowing of one head's like a reed. You go through the tall grass and just, you know, it doesn't take much to make that stuff just bend, especially right now with it all being brown. It probably doesn't take much to break it off pretty easy. Clive? Right. It can't be self-righteousness. That doesn't check the box because you can't be righteous enough. You know? Sorry, I lost my mind. Verse 6. Is this not the fast which I choose, to loosen the bonds of wickedness, to undo the bands of the yoke, to let the oppressed go free and break every yoke? Is it not to divide your bread with the hungry and bring the homeless poor into the house? When you see the naked, to cover him and not to hide yourself from your own flesh. What attitude is God seeking from those who seek his will? So if they're fasting, he'd like them to also focus on what? Love your neighbors as you love yourself. Help them, to loosen the bonds of wickedness with yourself, to loosen those bonds on people you've got those bonds on. We'll talk about the workers. Yeah, all that kind of thing. And we see that in Matthew 25, 34 through 36, with the goats and the sheep. Then the king will say of those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, who are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, you invited me in. Naked, and you clothed me. I was sick, you visited me. I was in prison, and you came to me." That's the attitude those are the people that get in through the narrow gate. Those are the people that go to heaven. It hasn't changed from the time of Isaiah 58. That's what the fast is about. If you're not going to eat, how can that help somebody else? How can your time be spent loving your neighbor as yourself? Verse 8, then your light will break out like the dawn, and your recovery will speedily spring forth, and your righteousness will go before you. The glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. How will God respond to those who come to him as a humble servant? As a blessing, really, right? Like a loving father. That's a good response. This verse is pretty poetic. It says, your light will break out like the dawn. Barnes says that God's prosperity on his humble servants will come like the spreading out of the dawn light. So when anybody like to get up early? Am I the only one there too? I'm the only one who likes to get up early? Susan says, not me. So I like when the sun breaks and things look different. As the light spreads and things look different, and it does. It fills in gaps and stuff. I like to go Black Point Drive, look at the wildlife and stuff. There are certain times of the day you can't take a picture of some of that stuff because you're on the shadow side of it. The sun's not up high enough, but you get some neat views of it. But the sun, as it comes up, it spreads and everything. The light gets everywhere. Jamie likes to go to the beach when we're home to see sunrise. Once the sun breaks the horizon, you can't take a picture of that. It's too bright to basically take a picture of it. There's some good color beforehand. Maybe you get behind a cloud, but once it breaks the horizon, it's too much. But that's how he compares God's prosperity. It's like the dawn light. It spreads everywhere. Compare it with Job. Job 11:17 says, your life would be brighter than noonday. Darkness would be like the morning. How's Job start out? That's God says, consider my humble servant Job. That's really what he says. Consider him. Satan takes a lot of stuff away from him, but Job stays faithful, and he's blessed exceedingly. He loses kids, but he gets more. He loses wealth, he gets more. He gets his health back. But it's his faith that's really the key to that. Your recovery will speedily spring forth. Barnes says that cites Loth and Knows. I have no idea who these people are, who translate this as and thy wounds shall be speedily healed over. So pretty much the same thing. I think Barnes probably works from the King James, but anyways. The word for health and recovery, if you look at an interlinear, and I am not going to put Hebrew on there because none of us can read that stuff anyways, but it's pronounced aruka. I got to get Matt in here, and he's the expert, I guess. It means a long bandage. And spring forth is, I can't even say this, tsamwak. Is that terrible enough or what? Who knows? Germinated like plants. So it talks about the blessings will be like putting a long bandage, not just a little Band-Aid, but like a surgical bandage. You know, where you wrap it around and stuff, God covers it up and heals it, and it's like germinated like plants. So it comes out like seeds, little sprouts and stuff, and grows anew. And that's the kind of recovery that it would give. And the idea is it's a return to God. The wounds that sin has will heal with peace and prosperity, and they'll start a new life. And that's really what that humble servant, that's how God blesses him. He blesses that person with a new life, peace and prosperity. Prosperity is, don't lose sight of the fact that that's not riches and gold. Verse 9, then you will call and the Lord will answer. You will cry and he will say, here I am. If you remove the yoke from your midst, the pointing of the finger and speaking wickedness. How will God respond to those who come to him as humble servants? We asked this question earlier, but there's more answers. If we come to him as humble servants, this is really Old Testament, but he'll say, here I am. If we call upon God, he'll answer. There's a song about that, isn't there? We call and he answers. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. What do they need to eliminate from their midst to have God respond to them? The yoke. Evil. Evil. It is a yoke. It's a burden. It ties them down. It ties them to that. They need to get rid of the evil. And I guess they can't even do it themselves, but the desire to get rid of it is the start. You need to get rid of the pointing of the finger. What's that? What's the pointing of the finger? Accusation, right? If you're pointing a finger, you're accusing somebody of something. That's usually, it's not Uncle Sam says, I want you in the army. It's you're accusing somebody of something. So that's good. You point at the kids when you threaten them? No? But the pointing of the finger, that's an easy thing to do. And you see that with the Pharisees and the Sadducees. They point the finger at those who aren't as righteous as them. You know, they point the finger as Chuck? Oh, they definitely pointed a finger at the,
Pointing at the finger and speaking wickedness. He said, he's of the devil.
yeah.
Pretty good example.
Yeah, the worst of the, yeah, you're right. Exactly what they're doing. Sorry, I'm about to sneeze. Turn off the mic. Appears when the mic's off. Yeah, that's exactly what they did to Christ. They pointed the finger at him. He claims he's the Son of God. He says he's the king. He says he's going to tear down this temple and rebuild it. He's got to be a bad guy. We're not here to kill this guy. We're just making him pay for his crimes. They bring in false witnesses. That's exactly what they're doing right here. Verse 10. And if you give yourself to the hungry and satisfy the desire of the afflicted, then your light will rise in darkness and your gloom will become like midday. And the Lord will continually guide you and satisfy your desire in scorched places and give strength to your bones, and you will be like a watered garden and like a spring of water whose waters do not fail. This is very poetic. It'd be hard. This is the kind of stuff, if you're a good journaler, this is good stuff that, you know, that I could see coming up in somebody's journal that really setting themselves aside and really focused on God. They would come up with analogies like some of this kind of thing. What must the people do to satisfy God, and how does that differ from what they had been doing? Stop focusing on me, focusing on my lusts, my desires, focus on others. Satisfy the desire of the afflicted, help the hungry, bring light to the darkness. I mean, those are good points. Or if you're wanting to do that, look in that direction, the Lord will guide them. How will they be rewarded for their faith? What's that? He'll bless them. Yeah. It's not the analogy, but the idioms are there. I don't know, metaphors, whatever. You'd be like a watered garden. You'd be like a spring of water whose waters don't fail. That's the kind of blessing you'll have that'll always bloom. It'll always be green. It'll always be renewed. It'll always look beautiful. Those are the kind of blessings you'll have in your life. Verse 12, those from among you will rebuild the ancient ruins. You will raise up the age-old foundations, and you will be called the repairer of the breach, the restorers of the streets in which to dwell. What ancient ruins will be rebuilt in age-old foundations, and what time or effort is this referring to? I can see parts of two things there. Part of it is the fact that they will get through the captivity and they will rebuild. They're never going to repair the breach. The breach happened from sin, and that doesn't happen. That doesn't get fixed till Christ comes. And so a lot of that points towards Christ too. The restorers of the streets. It's not the physical streets, it's the streets of gold. So you might see, like I say, I can see a little bit of it of the post-exile, but I say a lot of that's just Christ, the church. What about you, Chuck? They rebuild, yeah. It's slow, and they're going to rebuild ancient ruins, and it's a very physical thing. The repair of the breach, I mean, if you look at it as the wall, they'll rebuild that. The big breach being sin. So one could be a shadow of the other. But keeping the Sabbath, we've got 2 verses, verse 13 and 14. If because of the Sabbath you turn your foot from doing your own pleasure on my holy day and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy day of the Lord honorable, and honor it, desisting from your own ways, from seeking your own pleasure and speaking your own word, then you will take delight in the Lord. And I'll make you ride in the heights of the earth, and I will feed you with the heritage of Jacob your father, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. They don't keep the Sabbath when they're in captivity. There's just no way for them to do it. They had basically stopped. It seems to be that they stopped keeping the Sabbath by and large while they're towards the end of time. I mean, towards the end of the monarchy, towards the end of them being in their own land. They had basically stopped having that. The worship still happened, like we saw earlier, where the temple would still go, they would still make sacrifices, they just didn't have the same meaning. They were doing it because it needed done. But the Sabbath kind of went away. The captivity becomes its own Sabbath. It's a sabbatical where God puts them there as a cleansing. But anyways, what's the first word in this passage? I'll give you an easy one. Big word. Those who can read shall read if. And it's really a contract. If you blank, then you will blank. This is really what it is. It's a contract. And it's what God's telling them. If you stop doing your own thing on the Sabbath, then he will bless you. If you stop teaching and honoring the words of man and begin honoring the word of God, then you'll be blessed. If you call the Sabbath honorable and a delight, you'll be blessed. If you honor the Sabbath and not just merely to call it honorable, you'll be blessed. If you actually do things God commanded on the Sabbath. And the then part, the Sabbath is a good time for parents to instruct their kids to draw nearer to God and focus on holy matters. If they did it right, without the working, without the cooking, it was a time to focus on that and share that with their families. Help them delight in the Lord. Feed with the heritage of Jacob your father. That would be the kind of thing that when they would grow if they kept the Sabbath properly. That part about, and I will make you ride on the heights of the earth, right after the second stanza of verse 14, I'm not sure about that one. And I'm going to say that probably points to the church later, but it's kind of one of these things that nobody wanted to talk about. But it seems like something that needed talked about. Anyways, he's got these instructions in this chapter about fasts, about the Sabbath. But still, the instructions of God's people are, one, you really needed to do this all along, but you're not doing it. If you do it right, the remnant still needs to take care of that kind of thing. None of the Old Testament references on the Sabbath should be understood as binding on Christians. I do want to point that out, because I think Barnes thinks the Sabbath should be kept. However, it appears to us that it would be in keeping with the Word of God for the Lord's Day to be honored with the same love, same devotion, same worship was supposed in the Old Testament to have been given on the Sabbath day. I want to be clear on that. We don't have to keep the Sabbath day. That's gone away. But keeping that honored, loved, devoted, and that we're humbled and come here to worship God. That's something that is very important. So, all righty. Thank you.